Come on, you Spurs TV, the aftermath of Tottenham's European League Cup win. I mean, I'm still buzzing. Like, you can see I'm still walking on air, so it's like it's, it's good to it's good to be back. In the aftermath, and of course, when that happens, I mean, given the kind of season we've had, speculation doesn't go away. So we're going to look at so many things today. We're going to look at Ange stays or Ange goes, what decisions are going to be made, and who should we be looking at if that's the case. I don't want to go into I'm Mr. Positive. Sorry, I can't help myself. So yes, I'm very much hoping that they don't take that kind of direction of I mean finding another coach. But hey, all of those things are out of our hands. We'll dive deep into that in the course of this discussion. Welcome to Come On You Spurs TV. With me today, I have Chuma. Chuma is in-house, what I call in-house guru, not just on Spurs, but on football and even sports in general. I mean, it's just phenomenal. I'm big you up enough about Chuma, haven't I?
No. You should call me Chuma Champion now. I'm Chuma Champion.
Thank you. Call me, call me Soji winner.
You're Soji the winner. So
Thank you.
this is where all Spurs fight. Welcome to Come On You Spurs TV. If this is your first time watching, welcome to the Champions section of North London. Would love for you to subscribe, click on the notification bell to be notified every time we drop new positive champion content on this space. And if you can like the videos and comment as well, tell us what you think about the season, how it's gone on, and the topic today, which is and as always, come on you Spurs and be champions.
Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, so Tottenham won the Europa Cup, League Cup. Did it in what you might call in the least possible, expectation, if you like, in terms of what people were hoping that we would be in the course of the season, and essentially against all odds, But kudos to Mr. Postecoglou. I mean, obviously, incredibly, built that his promise, which is, I always win in my second season. So yes, are we gonna have season 3? Which is
which is always better than season 2.
Season 2. So I guess that's the conundrum. Well, that's the question. It's out of his hands personally if that's gonna happen. The question we're asking is, do Spurs retain Ange as the manager for next season, or do they find the replacement? Love to hear from you. Your comments, leave them in the comment section, and of course, because of this discussion, you have an idea of where we're going to start. I'm not going to sort of listen to the end, and you'll find out. So where do we start? So we had this interesting discussion in the course of preparing for this, right? And it was the fact that Spurs had a reasonably good season 1. Disappointed that we didn't qualify for the Champions League, and I think everything, with the benefit of hindsight, rested on the match played against Man City, where we lost that match, and if we had drawn or won that match, it would more or less have handed title to guys down the road. We won't say their names, but hey, that's what would have happened. And interestingly, we'll give you a bit of a preview of what to expect in the coming months. What if someone has got that goal? What would have happened? But we'll come to that. So yeah, so that's the context. That season 1 was really good in terms of saying Ange's season, lost Harry Kane, and no one knew what to expect. Won our first 10 games, and it kind of went downhill a little bit after that before we kind of recovered, got to a position whereby we were challenging for top 4 at the end of the season. Now, of course, if that season had been this season, we would have, obviously qualified for Champions League as 5th. However, come 2 of Ange, and things just went downhill. Now, plenty of reasons are used for that. I mean, the main thing being the injuries to the key members of the squad at different times and for sustained periods, And at some point in the season, it was like a lot of people do not remember the last time we had a back four that was essentially the same for a sustained period in the season. And they always say to you, a winning team is always built on a solid defense. You have to, that's the spine, that's the foundation on which you build a team. Of course, that obviously includes key central midfielder and a top-notch striker. But that's the spine of the team. And of course, the super goalkeeper. Everything else is should be around those. But that's this season, the time even when the carry was not available, he had a foot injury. We had Van de Ven Gogh, we had, everybody, Rogier, but everybody almost like was unavailable at some point during the season. Now, I think ours was unique on many levels because the position of the strike of the players and the length of time that they were out for, and obviously the effect it had on the structure of the team. And then of course we didn't have what you might call not necessarily suitable placement, but we kind of lacked the same quality as the first team. But the truth is that I mean most teams never have same quality for what they call the first team and second team. It's just a question of how you
Yeah.
navigate that balance in your team. Now, so we had those two contrasting seasons. Of course, this season we ended up winning the cup, which obviously meant that season two surpassed season one. Even though I mean in terms of achievements, but no one will have seen that coming given our big form. So it was surprising, pleasant and welcome and all that sort of thing. But what does a team or a club do when you've had this sort of thing? I mean, it's like recapping what you know anyway, which is that we haven't won anything in 17 years, right? We go and win not just a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup, win a major European trophy. We end up qualifying for Champions League, which opens the doors for better players, more money, even at the base form, right? And then you go, oh, we keep him or do we sack him? I mean, where do you want to start, Chuma? I mean, what's your take on this
Well,
one?
well, I'll start at season one. Um, you have to go back to the beginning of every story to get the context. I always say the same thing. I say this thing even when I see people trying to talk about the Bible. They pick a verse at random and tell you some stuff, and it's like, no, there's a pretext and a post-text. There's a context to everything. And in the beginning, Ange arrived at Spurs, possibly being the fifth choice if you go by the fact we wanted. Um, Luis Enrique was linked. Julian Nagelsmann was linked. Arne Slot at Liverpool was linked as well. That one ended up being a huge red herring in the sense that I felt he used the negotiations with Spurs to get a better contract at Feyenoord, take Feyenoord into the Champions League, which was his aim in the first place. And then he joined Liverpool, and the rest, as you say, is history. Spurs were linked to like three, four, five very good tacticians, and we ended up with Ange Postecoglou, who, to me, was a yeah, it was he was very unexpected. But looking at the football he had played from his time in Australia, Japan, and even Scotland, you could see that this man has a philosophy, and you can see that he's someone who gets results and he wins. Spurs had always wanted a winner. He said it jokingly once that when he had his meeting with Daniel Levy said, "Well, we've tried the winning managers. Now we're going to try Ange." He goes, "But hey, I'm a winning manager," and that's a fact. And then he joins, and the same season we lose our goal scoring talisman in Harry Kane. Harry Kane, I think, became ingrained into the system and the structure of Tottenham. He was Tottenham. If there ever was a Mr. Tottenham, we've had them over the years. We've had, the Steve Perrimans, we've had the Glenn Hoddles, we've had Paul Gascoigne for a short period. We've had Luke Van der Vaart. We have people who you could see them and you knew these guys were Tottenham through and through, and they could carry us. They could motivate players into doing the unthinkable. And Harry Kane had become that guy. Gareth Bale was that for 3 seasons, and Harry Kane was the next one. Ably assisted by Heung-min Son. And Harry Kane was meant to go the season 2 seasons before. He was meant to leave to Man City. For whatever happened, Man City couldn't pull the deal off. You could say it was difficulties with Daniel Levy, but at the same time, he was worth way more than I think they offered. And you can see that now. Like, he's worth so much more. And he left a huge hole in Spurs' attack. Huge hole in Spurs' structure, because he wasn't just a forward. As now, the funny thing is, everybody's hailing Harry Kane now as this complete centre forward. He always was the complete centre forward, even when he was at Spurs. But because he was at Spurs, no one could give him that title. They
Bars,
couldn't.
right?
Yeah, they couldn't. The accolades didn't come for him in that same way. He goes to Bayern Munich, and everyone goes, "Oh my God!" He drops into midfield. Oh my God! He creates as much as he scores, and you're like, my friend, he did that at
We've always
Spurs.
known this. Hello.
So for Spurs fans, it's the same thing. We always say the same thing, that yeah, so long as it's Spurs, it's never going to make the headlines for a good reason. Spurs are always good for a laugh or banter. We accept that. But now, as we now know, once you become champions, things change. Things
Absolutely.
are always bound to change. But yeah, so the season starts off, and it's a season without European football. People have to understand how important that is. It's a season without European football, and Spurs got knocked out of the cups, especially the League Cup, very early. So why I'm saying this is it allows your team time to train, time to implement new tactics, to embed a philosophy and a
And
method of
recover
playing
from injuries
into
as well.
and recover from injuries for both first and second team. Season comes to an end. Spurs finish fifth, which is respectable and above the position the previous season of eighth, which means you've made an improvement. An improvement in a year that you lost Harry Kane. Several things. You saw the football, you liked the football. And then even when we had the injuries, it all began with that Chelsea game where, infamously called the Highline game, where Spurs are down to 9 men and still playing a quote unquote Highline. But actually, what it was Spurs were trying to win the game. It wasn't the people throw it on the Highline. No, Spurs were trying to win the game with 9 men, which you don't really get to see. And it told you about the mentality, the mindset, and the psychology of the manager, Ange Postecoglou. And that game threw up so many things. There's so many injuries as well. From that game was I think it was the beginning, it was the catalyst of our injury
Pivotal,
problems
if
for
you like.
last season. Yes, it was a pivotal moment in our season, and that's when things started happening. Vicario, all these guys also get injured, but at different points, and we had good enough substitutes. People look down on players like Pierre Emil Hoiberg. They look down on people like Oliver Skip, but these guys, and even Giovanni Lo Celso, they were able deputies for the players and positions and they were really good. I thought we lost that quality in our second team when those guys departed. You can say what you want about Skip. Skip puts in a great shift. Whatever position you play him in, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg is not the most beautiful or classically designed football player, but he gets the job done. And he's done the same at Marseille where he's gone. Giovanni Lo Celso goes back to Betis and he's fits like a glove. So they weren't bad players. The problem, I think, was Spurs did not invest enough in second string
Yeah.
as much. And these things happen. And then you now launch into a season where you're playing Europa League football, FA Cup football, League Cup football, and League football. And the manager's remit at the start of the season, this is important for Spurs fans, get us into Europe again, preferably the Champions League. Now, as we know, there are two ways to get into the Champions League. You either finish in the top four, or you win a Europa League, which you're in, to get into the Champions League. They did not specify which way we would get in. But because Spurs are used to getting into the Champions League by finishing in the top four, fans naturally gravitated to this. And this is not insulting the fans in any way, shape, or form. It's the truth. We always finish top four. We finish top six. We battle. Spurs' average position in the Premier League is fifth. So he starts the season, and we get to a pivotal game, which is the Man City game, where Guillermo Vicario plays with a broken ankle or whatnot. He's gone. That game, too, was similar to the last season's Chelsea game, where everything really unfurled. I think we played the best football that game, and the injuries started happening straight afterwards. And the deputies in this case, you have young players like Lucas Bergvall, you have players like Archie Gray, who are going to become, I believe, personally believe they're going to become excellent players. Excellent players. You can see it. You know, the jury for a lot of people is out on Archie Gray. It isn't for me. I think it's consistency in performance. He needs to play a position, and he's been moved around. Bergvall has one position, and you can see what's happened with him getting his 10,000 hours in that position. It's helped him. Archie Gray's move, but they're not Emil Højbjerg. And what I mean by that is there's a certain know-how when you've played football professionally for a while and senior football. And I don't think these players had it at the time, and they're getting it. And the drop off from 1 to 2 was so large, and the injuries just kept on mounting. Spurs, league position wise, and Ange Postecoglou, whether people like to believe it or not, he made that prophetic statement of always winning in his second season. I think his real mindset was, like he said, I don't think this club will change by finishing in the top 4, top 6, because we've done it before. We've done it under other managers. The minute we win a trophy and we build on that, this club will change forever. If you don't believe it, you had to be at the celebrations.
Right. So let me ask you one quick question before you continue. So, if club is to move on from this victory of Ange's vision, which is that we can change the club around by winning a trophy, is he the man to take us through given where we are now, or do we get somebody else?
Well, in my opinion, it doesn't matter either way. It doesn't matter either way, because the great hoodoo on every manager that arrived at Tottenham was Tottenham had never won a trophy since 2008. So they were more or less shoveling cow dung uphill.
2008, you mean? Right, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, and now you're on the top of the hill. You're no longer going uphill. The journey is different now. It's a whole different project now. So you're not laden with the bag of trying to become the first manager to win a trophy. In saying that, I believe that the guy who got the job done, since we've all worked in corporate environments where it's been said you have your KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. And they say, this is what we expect from you, Soji. We expect this from you this year. At the end of this year, we'll have your one-to-one. And then when we do your one-to-one, we'll find out if you've hit your targets and exceeded them. He was told in January, printed, Daniel Levy said, we want to get into Europe next season. That was his only metric. And he not only broke the hoodoo of the cup winning trophy, he won a trophy. He won a major European trophy, which in my opinion is bigger than the League Cup, possibly even the FA Cup, because the FA Cup gets you into the Europa League, which we just won. And then he got into the Champions League, the premier elite cup competition intercontinentally for Spurs. At that point, you say to him, he has earned the right to have a go again. I don't care if people think he's tactically naive, tactically inept. I believe he has earned the right to go again. And let's see, he's not, how do they say it? When you try and you fail, when you start again, you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. He has now experienced what it is to have a horrible league season. All he has to do is improve the league position next season and go as far as he can in that, and then do a domestic cup. These players now know what it feels like to dedicate themselves to winning a cup match. They know how to grind out a cup win. I think this is valuable information going forward for the players and for the squad. And now you're with a manager who has led you to that. There's something to be said about following somebody who has led you to victory. And I think, yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, thanks very much, Chuma. And it's I couldn't even find a reason to disagree with you. The only thing I would probably disagree with is you don't care either way. I mean, that's like sitting on the fence.
No,
You know?
no. I love
I,
Ange. I love Ange, but it just no. It for me, you know me. I love the tactics. It
oh no
depends
no
on
no
who
no!
they.
I
It depends on
I
who they are
I
getting.
know where you're coming from. I was just sort of
But then
having
in the
a bit of
market,
a at you.
so let me caveat this. In the market, especially in England, of the replacements, which of the guys they're touting as a replacement is actually better than him? That's the problem. You have Thomas Frank, Andoni Iraola, and Marco Silva. Which one of them have won a trophy? These are the things you throw out. You know, they've never managed the Spurs before.
And I'll just mention something very quickly. There's a reason I'm wearing this shirt, right?
the
This is the
last
shirt
that
we
was the
wore
last
the last time we
2008.
won a trophy, right?
This was the FA Cup 91.
So we're on to a winning season this season again. Let me just say this as well. I mean, just in addition to what you said. So I know I mentioned this in the when we, I mean, in the past as well, but I'll just repeat it just again. My aunt has always said something about the value of having the right mindset, right? And he sort of mentioned in different contexts by saying, for instance, that look, when he's looking for a new player, he's not looking for a player who says he wants Spurs because of Champions League football, you know, or he doesn't want a player who says, oh, because of their position in the league, you know, he wants someone who wants to play for Tottenham, right? So that's one bit of mindset. The other bit of mindset is he said something about having experienced adversity and how to deal with it, right? That this season can help to reinforce that ability and improve them going forward. And I agree with that 110% because, like you said, if you've been through this, you've had to have learned belief. You had to have learned a positive mindset. You have to have learned that winning depends very much on perseverance, right? And it makes you believe also that it is possible to do. It's possible to be done. It's not like some sort of way out, fantastic talk. Someone's talking. You know, it sort of says it to you and manifested at the end. So that is like you can't even match that for me in terms of mindset and big belief type thing. So I, I I've never doubted Ange. I have to say that. I've kept being consistent and saying, look,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
whether we won or we didn't win, I didn't think we had to let him go because I felt that what he was doing was only start of a project. It's just, I mean, obviously, like first and second year in a 4 year project, right? So let him see it through. And these are consistently sacking managers should stop. You know, let's all see what I call stability, right? We've had all sorts of examples of how that gone over time. Given examples of like Sir Alex and all that stuff. I mean, some people say it's out of context. Some people say it's irrelevant. But I actually think very relevant. I actually think, from my perspective, that this is the beginning of the building of a dynasty at club, and to see more and more victories. I have no doubt whatsoever, Chuma. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever. This is what I call Mr. Belief. you know, and I think we'll get there. I think we'll get there. Guys, let's hear your thoughts on should Ange stay or should Ange go? And yeah, we'll catch up with you on the next episode. Chuma, any final words before we go?
Just that I think, like you said, I think this has really changed the players' mindset. What I'm seeing on social media with the players and how early he told them what they were going to do. There's so much in, it's never trying to turn this show into like a spiritual show, but there's something about making plans, making a goal, and achieving that goal in life generally. For you to set something out, you have to have something written down. I want to do this. And he says, I want to win a trophy and I want to win it in the second year. And these players have witnessed this thing happening. I think their lives have changed as Spurs players. I think it's changed because now you can't throw it on them anymore. You know, what have you won? I want something. I want something last season. I want something 2 weeks ago. I want it. They go into this holiday like that championship mentality, and none more so than our illustrious ex Jose Mourinho trying to throw a dig at Daniel Levy, but at the same time praising Ange because Mourinho recognizes that Ange knows what he knows, which is if you win something. That's why Mourinho was always keen on trying to win the League Cup early. It changes the mindset. Mourinho has said it now that, yeah, said for Ange, I'm telling you what this has done for Ange. Well, yeah, with Mr. Levy, he makes the millions. But that statement is from a man who is a winner, who knows what it means and what it does to your team and your squad. And I think he's recognized that this Ange guy, like I said, Ange is a champion, whether he stays at Spurs or he leaves. But I tell you what, like, there's a street named after him already, in my opinion. Like, that's it for me. If we're doing statues, we're doing all that stuff, then it is. And then you're hearing players' futures are linked to his. I'm hearing the Christian Romero is like, if you get rid, I'm out. That I think is huge. So it's a mark of the man, and we move forward. Champions next season, more champions. What can you say? Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Thank you so much, Chuma. Take good care.
Bye, guys.